Every wiring diagram ever drawn is built from just three things. Point at anything on the page, and it is one of them: a part, a connection, or a label. Master those three, and wiring diagram basics stop being a wall of confusing lines. This is a real one, a household light switch. Watch. Here is the power source. This line is a wire carrying current, and this little tag names it part, connection, label. That is the whole alphabet. Now, let us actually learn to read it and the different kinds of diagram it comes in. Start with those three things. Every diagram, car, house, solar machine, is nothing but these three repeated. 1. The parts. Every component gets a small standard symbol. A battery, a switch, a lamp, a motor. Each has its own picture. Learn the symbol, and you know the part on site. 2. The connections. Every line on the page is a real wire, a conductor that current can travel down. Lines that meet at a solid dot are joined. Lines that cross with no dot simply pass by, like roads on an overpass. 3. The labels. The tiny tags that carry the details: a wire color, a voltage, a terminal number. Labels are how a diagram tells you what it cannot draw. Parts, connections, labels. That is the whole of electrical diagram basics in one breath, and you already have it. Quick note before we go further. Every diagram in this video is drawn in Circuit Diagram Maker, a free editor that runs right in your browser. No install, no signup. You can open any diagram from the library and trace it yourself. Live on the canvas. The link is below. Keep it open in a second tab while you watch. The best way to learn wiring diagrams for beginners is to poke at a real one, right? Onward. Here is the thing nobody tells beginners. A wiring diagram is not one kind of drawing. It is a whole family of them, and each type answers a different question. Knowing which is the real unlock. There are 5 wiring diagram types you will actually meet. First, the wiring diagram itself, also called a connection diagram. It shows the real parts and the real wires between them, roughly where they sit. This is what you use to actually wire something up. Second, the schematic. It throws away physical position and shows only the electrical logic. Clean symbols, straight lines, easy to follow. Engineers reach for this to understand how a circuit works. Third, the pictorial. Little drawings of the actual components instead of symbols. Friendly for an absolute beginner, useless for anything complicated. Fourth, the ladder diagram. 2 vertical power rails with rungs between them read top to bottom. This is the language of control panels and industrial machines. Fifth, the single line diagram. 1 line stands in for a whole circuit, sometimes 3 whole phases at once. Power engineers use it to see an entire building at a glance. Same electricity, 5 different drawings. Let's look at real ones. Start with the 2 you will meet most. This is a wiring or connection diagram. The light switch from the opening. Notice what it gives you. The parts sit roughly where they live in the real world. The wires are drawn the way they actually run. You could follow this with a screwdriver in your hand and wire the box. That is its job, building and repairing. It trades tidy logic for real-world layout. Now the same idea drawn as a schematic. Watch what changes. Physical position is gone. The symbols line up in neat rows. The wires run in clean, straight paths. The whole thing is about the electrical logic, not where anything sits. A schematic answers one question: how does this circuit actually work? When you want to understand a design or hunt a fault by logic, this is the drawing you reach for. Same kind of parts as the wiring diagram, a completely different view. Learn to tell which one is in front of you, and you already know what it is for. 3 more types, and you have seen them all. This is a ladder diagram. Look at the shape: 2 vertical rails carrying power down each side, and horizontal rungs stretch between them. You read it like a book: top rung first, then work down. Each rung is one action. If this input is on, energize that output. Walk into any factory or control panel, and this is the drawing taped inside the door. It is how a machine is told what to do. Now, a single line diagram. This one looks almost too simple, and that is exactly the point. 1 single line stands in for a whole circuit, sometimes 3 entire phases collapsed into 1 stroke. You throw away the detail on purpose. What you gain is the big picture, the main breaker, the feeders, and the loads of a whole building on one clean page. Power engineers practically live in these. So that is the map. Wiring, schematic, pictorial, ladder, single line. 5 drawings, 1 skill, because underneath, every single one of them is still just parts, connections, and labels. Next, the rules that make any diagram readable. These wiring diagram fundamentals hold across all 5 types. Rule 1 is flow. Most diagrams read like text. Power enters from one side, usually the left or the top, and works its way across to the other. Find the source first, and let the drawing carry you downstream. You're almost never meant to read it backwards. Rule 2 is labeling. Good diagrams name things consistently. A wire tagged L1 in one spot is the same L1 everywhere it appears. Terminals get numbers, wires get colors, and there is usually a legend in the corner that explains the code. Read the legend before you read the diagram. It is 30 seconds that saves you 10 minutes. Rule 3 is wire numbering. In a bigger drawing, every wire carries a number. That same number shows up at both of its ends, even when the wire leaps clear across the page. See a wire vanish off the edge? Find its number, and it reappears somewhere else. Same number, carrying straight on. Nothing is ever really a dead end. Flow, labels, numbers. When a diagram feels unreadable, it is almost always because one of those 3 got skipped. One more layer, and you are genuinely dangerous, the symbols. You do not need to memorize hundreds of them. They fall into just 4 families, and once you can see the families, every new symbol slots straight into place. Family 1 is power, batteries, main supply, generators, anything that pushes current into the circuit. This is where every trace begins. Family 2 is switching. Switches, relays, contactors, push buttons, anything that opens or closes a path. They are drawn as a break in the line, with something that bridges the gap. Family 3 is loads. The whole reason the circuit exists: lamps, motors, heaters, coils. Anything that turns electricity into light, motion, or heat. Family 4 is protection. Fuses, breakers, overloads. The parts whose entire job is to cut the circuit the moment something goes wrong. Learn to spot these first. They're the safety story of the whole drawing. Power, switching, loads, protection. Sort every symbol you meet into one of those 4 buckets. Even a diagram you have never seen before suddenly has a shape you recognize. So how do you go from watching this to reading diagrams on your own? 2 steps. Both are free. Step 1. Read 1. Open the library at circuitdiagrammaker.app. Thousands of real diagrams, light switches, motors, solar, automotive. Pick one and trace it, source to load, with your cursor. We have a whole video that walks the reading method line by line, and it is linked for you right here. Step 2. Draw 1. Nothing locks the basics, and like building a circuit with your own hands. Open the editor, drop in a source, a switch, and a lamp, and wire them together. We have a full video on drawing your very first diagram too, start to finish. Read 1, then draw 1. That is the entire path from beginner to comfortable. And you can start both right now in the browser for nothing. So here is everything you just picked up. Every wiring diagram is parts, connections, and labels. There are 5 types: wiring, schematic, pictorial, ladder, and single line, and each answers a different question. Diagrams flow from the source. They label everything, and they number their wires. And every symbol drops into one of 4 families: power, switching, loads, and protection. That is the foundation. It does not get harder from here. It just gets more familiar, one diagram at a time. Open Circuit Diagram Maker app, pick a diagram, and start reading. It is free, it runs in your browser, and the link is right below. Subscribe if this finally made wiring diagrams make sense. And I will see you in the next one.